Welcome back to Football Fever, everyone. Brought to you by LISD TV and LoneStarVarsity.com, your source for high school football here on the South Plains. Travis Graham here, and with me, as always, is the AJ's George Watson. And George, now going into this bye week this season, maybe starting to see a little bit of separation from these 10 teams in 2-5A.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's interesting. This was a big week, I thought, for LISD teams, for all these teams in 2-5A, to kind of see where everybody was going to end up. And I don't know if that much, was really sorted out or anything like that. But I think you can kind of start to see who's going to be the kind of the contenders and some of the pretenders. Obviously, Odessa and Odessa Permian are going to be the contenders there. They're at the top of the district. Midland High is right there with them. And then I think after that it's still kind of a jumble. I mean, you've got teams like Midland Lee, Monterey. I still think Coronado, Amarillo are still all going to be there. And right now I wouldn't count out teams like Tascosa or maybe even Lubbock High. I think Lubbock High showed some things this week. So you're starting to see some separation, but I think we've got an interesting 2 weeks. A lot of all of them are off this week. Got a lot of things to work on, and it'll be interesting to see how they come back because there's some pretty interesting matchups, between key teams, when they come back here in a couple weeks.
Midland Lee getting win number 2 in a row for them. Right. Coronado is just one mistake too many for them.
Yeah, I'm sure, this is one that may haunt Coronado depending on where they end up at the end of the season. If they're sitting there one game out, this is going to be the one I think that they point at because they had every opportunity to win this game, but just didn't play well. I mean, they got the defensive, effort that they needed, and coming off the Odessa game last week or the week before, and held Midland Lee to 21 points, which with that Coronado offense you would think would be just enough to or more than enough to get the victory. But Chris Camp comes out and throws 2 interceptions in his first 5 throws. Throws 3 overall. They can't really get the offense going early, and then they're going in for the tying score, and they look like they've got all the momentum, and they get a fumble at the 1-yard line that Midland Lee recovers there in the fourth quarter, and they come down, run out the clock, and it's basically over from there. So I think Coronado, when they look back, if they end up out of the playoffs, this is going to be the one that they're going to point to and say, hey, we should have won this game, and this is what cost us.
All right, Midland High taking on Lubbock High. Westerners going up to Midland taking on the Bulldogs. A tough loss, 62-24, but at the same time, maybe this is something Speck can take into the bye week to work on a little bit more, seeing a little more offense in the game. Yeah,
definitely. I think so. You get 24 points. I mean, and they led this game, something like 18-14 early in the second quarter before Midland High went off for like 34 straight points. And a lot of that, was some turnovers. They got one of those was a big fumble return for a touchdown. And just some mistakes that Lubbock High is still shooting themselves in the foot offensively. But you're right. I mean, we talked about getting some consistent offense early in the game, and boy, they got a big play. A lot of big plays in the passing game. One right off the bat, to start the game, the first series, and really held their own for about the first 12 15 minutes of the ball game. But then, Midland High started exploiting something in that defense. And I think that's something that may be a little bit more disappointing is the fact that, Lubbock High's defense had been pretty good all year as far as stopping certain things, but, they just couldn't stop Midland High. So I'm sure that when they go back and this week in the bye week and they're looking at stuff, they're not so much looking at what do we need to improve on. They're looking at what do we need to correct. And I think, that's going to be their big key these next couple of weeks.
All right. Plainsmen taking on San Angelo Central. A tough loss, of course, to Permian, but maybe they showed a little bit of resiliency in bouncing back for this game.
Absolutely. Monterey went down to San Angelo Central on a noon Saturday game, so they're up at the crack of dawn getting on the bus to make that 3-hour trip, get off the bus, and they don't have Sam Teague. He suffered a hip pointer against Odessa Permian the week before, and so he's not playing. So they have to rely on 2 backup quarterbacks, Troy Nicholson and Tyler Pearson, and they do an outstanding job. Each one of them throws for a touchdown, but they also get some good rushing from guys like Stormy Moore and Eric Arias and really get back on track. And then defensively, I think that was the big deal. Central's offense is struggling. They haven't put up just a whole lot of points. Monterey gave up some yards, but they only gave up the 1 score there early in the game. And from there on, it was pretty much Monterey's game, winning 31-6 and getting back on track. And that's why I say, Monterey is now in a key position because when they come back, they've got a game against Midland. And if it's on a Thursday here at Lowry Field, so they really need to build for the next couple weeks and go into that game. And that's going to be a key game for them, I think.
All right, 2 other scores from around the 2-5A were, of course, 2 undefeated teams staying undefeated. Permian wins over Amarillo 47-10, and Odessa High takes out Tascosa 45-35. And now we'll talk a little bit more about 2-5A going on later in the show. But Snyder and Estacado, the game 2 at Lowry this past weekend. Snyder showed that they can rush the ball.
Absolutely. I mean, there have been a lot of questions on Snyder, without Will Clay and without Lance Day from last year, and they'd struggled some early in the season, and they were coming off a double overtime or triple overtime victory over Paladura the week before. They come in, and the first two plays offensively for the Tigers, they fumble the football. Estacado recovers, and they get 10 points out of it. So you're thinking, well, maybe Snyder's got some things they really need to work on, but they get over that. Once they're able to hang on to the football, they pretty much dominate the game from there on. Estacado struggled to stop that option offense at Snyder. Quarterback Jesse Connor at Snyder was very efficient running that option, and then he got some big plays from running back Kelton Garcia. So yeah, I think the Tigers, that this may be the game that propels them the rest of the year in building their confidence and showing their ability of what they can do. They really showed well once they were able to hang on to the football.
Yeah, Snyder, 404 rushing yards in that game. Another team that's been posting a lot of yards that we keep talking about is, of course, Muleshoe, taking on number 2 Crane this past weekend. And I don't know if we're ever going to go a week without talking about the Mules. They win in a big game.
They win a very big game. You're talking about beating the number 2 team in Class 2A, and I think that really showed what Muleshoe is made of. Yeah, they gave up 41 points, but they're kind of like Tech, or at least the early Tech teams. They're going to score more, so they don't really care what they give up. And once they get to district, I don't look for any team in that district to score 41 points. But they score 63, and they are just a machine right now. It just seems like offensively, defensively, no matter what, they're just able to pretty much dictate and do whatever they want. And I think that's why the main reason they moved up into number 9 in the AP rankings this week. And I know I think I had them as high as number 8, maybe even number 7. But I mean, they deserve to be there at number 9, definitely.
Another score from round 2A. Idalou wins 35-6 over Cooper. Cooper struggling a little bit, but attribute the Idalou rushing game for staying consistent game after game with Tanner Cook.
Yeah, absolutely. Between Tanner Cook, Sean Reagan, and that offensive line, I've said it before and I'll say it again. They are just very, very tough to beat over there at Idalou. I mean, because a game like that, or a team like that, they're just so well coached and so adept at the fundamentals in blocking and knowing where guys are supposed to be. And it shows week in and week out. And now those teams get into their district meet, the meet of their district schedule as well, starting this week. And it'll be interesting to see how all that stuff starts playing out in that district as well.
All right, Friendship getting a big win over Randall this past weekend. We'll talk to Coach Davis here in a second a little bit more about the Tigers. But, I mean, obviously that's in the right direction that they're moving in this season, maybe not expecting it.
Yeah, maybe not a little bit. With so many guys they had to replace, I'm sure that there were some questions going in. But, the one question they didn't have was that offensive line led by Mason Walters. They got, those guys up front are the key. They've opened up some big holes in the running game and really allowed, Tyler Lloyd to be very efficient in the passing game. And they're sitting there at 4-0. Had to come back in the second half. But, kind of like you told me that you were impressed watching them, just to see a team go in, talk about making adjustments at halftime, and then go out and execute them as well. I mean, that's what Friendship does. They're another team, another program with Brad Davis that is so well coached. That is their forte, and it really showed up against Randall the other night.
Yeah, and I think that was one thing was seeing how well the offense responded passing-wise. Lloyd getting that big pass over the middle, opens up the ball game, gets them a bigger lead, and of course Ratliff getting some big plays. That receiver kicks a 49-yard field goal right before halftime after he missed a 32-yarder right before that. And it just seems like they've got enough guys to spread the ball around on offense and do everything on special teams.
Yeah, they're very adept, and a key guy like you said, Lance Ratliff, a guy who can do everything for him, catch the ball. He can play defense. He's a return guy on special teams and kicking the field goals. That's like Coach Davis said, that's a very special guy you got to have, and they're very adept at developing those special kind of guys offensively, defensively, and special teams.
All right, when we come back, George will join the AJ City Player of the Week right here in the Fever.